Hello. So today I want to cover an example which basically applies all the concepts from the first two tutorial videos. And it should be a good transition onto tutorial video 3, which should be out sometime this week if I get to it. So this project in question is an AMV. If you're not familiar with AMVs, they're basically video content lined up to a music track. So in this case, our music is Shara Shara here. And our video in question is an anime, and we're going to do a tribute video to this character here, SCB Inoue. So this is the project here, and we're just going to run through this, basically how it was done and whatnot. So if this doesn't look useful to you, by all means just skip this video and wait for tutorial video 3. Again, it should be out sometime this week. But otherwise, we're going to jump into this and see if it's useful or not. So the main thing to notice is all the main video strips here are meta strips. And so basically these meta strips are just the original audio and original video combined into a single strip. So they're very easy to move around and edit type of thing. For the most part, that's all these meta strips are. So just think of them as your basic video strip that you would see anywhere else, basically. So with there are some exceptions here, so I'll get to those a bit later. Okay, so the first step to doing a project like this is to get your video content. So I'm just going to move over here, and I didn't have to edit any of this. This is actually how my project was left when it was finished. So all the steps are actually pretty visible here. So the first step was getting your video, and then isolating the scenes, and then duplicating that, playing around with this, and combining it to make an outline with your music here, and then applying your effects strip. So those are basically the steps you're going to go through here. So before you do any kind of project, it's good to have everything in one location. So basically what I did here was I put a projects folder on my desktop, and inside that projects folder I have a whole bunch of projects here. And the one in question is my AMV bento here. So basically any stuff I use or insert into my Blender file here, I have in this folder. And again, the reason is that if you have something outside the folder and you change its location, which you will probably at some point in your computer's existence, it messes everything up, and you have to redefine the paths, and that can be you have to redefine the paths, and that can be a huge hassle to do. So with this, I can easily just take this folder, toss it on an SSD, external hard drive in this case, and easily move it back into this folder at a later time to edit fairly easily. So that's the mentality of having it in its own kind of separate contained folder here. And I would always move it back to where it is here, and I would try not to touch this projects folder in general, but all of these I can move to my my external hard drive at any time. So the first step is to go through your video content. Just gonna delete that. So this is a tribute video. The content is 12 episodes long. So I basically need to go through each of these. I can go through it in VLC player fairly quickly and just find a video that has scenes that I want to include, basically. And once I find that, I just click and drag it into the timeline here. Then the first thing I do, click on the video, go down, assign a proxy and timecode. So in my case, I have a fairly low spec laptop I'm using right now. So I go to 25 and 80, and I put recorder on as my timecode. So these are probably the lowest kind of settings you can use without, influencing your workflow too much. So I can easily edit this the same way as, more or less the same as any other kind of setting I choose here. So next, while this is adding the timecode, I would repeat for each video in question. So I end up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 8 videos in this case. So I have 8 videos I need to go through. So the next step is, because this is an AMV and I'm lining video with music, normally I would just delete the original audio file here. But in this case, I want the character's voiceovers to be included. And so what I could do is just highlight both of these strips and do my cuts, right? Then I would always have to move these two in tandem by highlighting them, etc. That's a lot of work though, and I only have 32 channels to deal with, so it's not ideal at all to do that. So a workaround would be to make these into one strip. So that's why we're going to use meta strips to do that. Before we do that though, what we're going to do is we're going to lower the volume of the waveform for each of these to 50%, so 0.5 from 1.0. And the reason we're doing that is because our music file, you can kind of see here, the waveform is more or less maximized throughout. And again, with Blender, when you combine two audio files, channels on top of each other like so, it's going to amplify the waveform. And we don't have enough space before we clip to do that in a lot of these cases. And so all I need to do is actually hear my the original audio in the background while I'm editing it to the music file here. So I lower it to 0.5 in this case. That's good enough basically. So I do that for every strip. And then next I can just duplicate these, hit GY to bring it up. So again, Shift D to duplicate, GY to move it up. And I'm going to combine these using a meta strip. So Control G. And ta-da! We have all the properties of the original two strips in one strip here. And after we do this though, the thing is, you do not want to go inside this meta strip. And you go inside and outside with Tab. You just hit Tab while it's selected. And you don't want to edit this and mess around with this, or add cuts or stuff like that, because that can cause issues. So once you meta something with the intent of applying properties to that meta, you generally don't change what's inside of it, if that makes sense. So from there, we basically just go through and cut out the parts that we want. So the character is here, I'm going to cut to here. I'm just doing soft cuts in this case. And I just bring that up with GY here. And I'll do that for the entire video here, find any character scenes I want, and I would repeat for all of these, the same thing, metaing it, etc. And at the end, I would, I can just box select with B and then click and drag down, and I can just, I could just move it manually with G over to here. And like so, and then I would have like a bunch of these, etc. And that would end up with something like this here, where I have all my video content that I want to actually use to make my AMV. From there, I would just take this and duplicate it over to here, which is what I have here. And the intent with that is that I can now play around with this stuff as much as I want to. I can delete it, I can make hard cuts, whatever I want to do, while I have a backup copy here that I can easily go to and just scrounge around in case I deleted something I need here. So I can always backtrack at any point, basically. It makes things easier. So I can just mess around to my heart's content here. So from there, you have a whole bunch of strips here, and you just combine these with your audio in the way that you want, basically. And so you'd play, a section of the audio, and say, oh, okay, this scene here would work for that. So you just grab it and place it there, and you just continue that process type of thing. And you layer things, so you'd end up with something like this. So you have a whole bunch of meta strips kind of layered on top of each other, all over the place type thing. Then from there, once you get an outline, you would then go in and start trimming stuff, making hard cuts, making, just trimming stuff to get things more in line and more refined. And then from there, you would add all your effect strips. So the subtitles, the transforms, the speed controls, the everything like that. So all the stuff on top basically you'd add in. At the end you'd add a watermark in, which I'll get to in a minute. So let's start going through this. So we have an opening, which is just, the original audio and original video here, just to grab people's attention. Then from there, we have this section here. So what we're doing here is actually zooming in on a video strip, and we're applying subtitles and a little wipe effect here for the text. So I'm just going to show you how that was done. So we're muting that. So this is the original video strip here. As you can see, no zoom at all. Then we just add a transform layer to that. So I'm going to shift a effect strip transform. And we get this here. And we just apply keyframes to add a zoom. The original, and I'm going to find that by going down here and by having it highlighted and jump to previous keyframe. And the first keyframe is over here. So all that means is that the original video was stretched to the hair, but then I refined it and trimmed it down to about there. So we have a keyframe, and we're just kind of zooming in, and as you can kind of see, we're using the Bezier curve in this case. So because we kind of skipped there, it's a bit faster here, and it speeds up, and it slows down again, then it goes super slow here, using the Bezier type of interpolation. Okay, so from there, we actually retain the audio here because we want to use it because she's on the phone here talking to someone. And so I add in the subtitles here. Okay, let's go for the next bit here, which is the subtitles. So these were made up in Inkscape. I'll do a separate video on how to do that, but you just basically do your text to start out with. Just put it as an overdrop and like so. Yeah, so just add your text very roughly using Blender's text strip here. And I would have those underneath here, and I just mute them at the end type thing. And then later on I'd make them in Inkscape here. So basic subtitles, they're just set as overdrops basically, as you can see here. And they're over top of everything. And then we have this. So we have something interesting happening here. So again, we have like a wipe here. The text is kind of coming in here. So how do we do that? Well, basically we have this thing made up here. And this is actually a cropped version of the original. So it's like this originally. And what I do is I go down here and I want to crop it so half of this is taken out. So I would go down here, hit image offset, and then image crop, and then I could assign a crop like so. Oops, wrong one. Yep, so like so. And like that. And then I would duplicate this and put it, for this one here. And then that's basically just a cropped version of the same thing here. So I did the same thing, and I just manually moved it over like so. So then I want to add in this wipe effect. So to do that, you need to apply the wipe to two different things, right? So I want to apply it to the text overlay, which is this, and everything underneath it, that text overlay. So to assign a strip that covers everything underneath, we just add in an adjustment layer. So again, shift a adjustment layer here, right? And so we have that in between, and we can basically use that as a jumping pad here. So we would highlight the adjustment layer, holding shift, and then our strip, and then we add the wipe here. As you can see, it does this, the basic wipe. So we change that to overdrop. As you can see, it will wipe from top to bottom there. So we want to change the angle of that, so change it to 90 here. And look at it again, and it's going the wrong way, so just change it to in here. And we get the effect we want here. And we could speed that up by messing around with the location of the adjustment layer, 2 strips. So the adjustment layer and the original subtitle layer here. So it's pretty much the effect there. Very easy to do. And so we're going to move on from there. And basically we just have a basic cuts here. So soft cuts, hard cuts. Then we have this scene here. And basically all this is this is the original scene here. Okay, so we have a cell phone moving up and down, and we have this kind of sonic thing here. So what I want it to do here is apply an overlay to the cell phone. So the video I want to use was this one here. So how do I do that? Well, first thing you want to do is apply a transform layer to this thing here. So I did that there. I'm just going to unmute that. And on that transform layer, basically I applied a crop again. So again, it was a crop all over the place. So I'm just cropping it to the corner here. If I do image offset here, I could do image offset via this. But what I chose to do, is apply a transform to the transform. And the benefit of doing this is that it refreshes all your settings here. So these are all set to 0s and 1s and whatnot like that. So I could do that. I'm just going to delete. Actually, I'll keep. That's what I did there. So I'm just going to show you here. So basically what was done here, we need to hide the ones underneath here in this case. But it's taking the properties of this stuff underneath and then giving you a fresh kind of slate. So I could position it, and sorry, just hang on 1 second here. I'll show you how it was to begin with. So it was like this, and all I did was change the rotation and change the position so it's over top of our cell phone there. And the intent here is just to basically have it over top of the cell phone as an overlay, and you'd want to change your proxy to 100% for this to get it exact when you're setting it up more exactly, precisely here. So something like this. But if we look at the original here, we have these kind of lines and lighting effects. So I want to kind of keep those. So I could just, you know, change the opacity a bit, and that kind of functions pretty good. Another route is to go to change this to add. And it's going to play with the lighting a bit, make it a bit bright. But we get those lines here. And so to compensate for the brightness, we'll change the opacity down a little bit. And as you can see, that kind of sonic thing comes in a bit here, but it doesn't really matter. It just looks like a bright kind of glare happening there. And that's pretty much all you need to do. You don't need to do any masking for this because it's a basic kind of overlay. You could mask it in to get it a bit more precise, but you know, this is pretty sufficient for what we need here. And we just have the little audio from the original video combined here. Can't really hear it, but I did bump that up to 1.5 in this case. Alrighty, so moving on from there. Again, just basic soft cuts going to the beat of the music, basic AMV stuff. And then we have this section here. So what this is if you kind of listen to the music here, has that kind of free kind of beats to it here, drum beats here, whatever. So the intent here is to do something with the video to kind of accentuate that. So I chose to do a transform layer here because this is the original footage here. It's just basic like this. So I'm going to do a zoom here. Because we're jumping from 2 different meta strips, we're going to use an adjustment layer to do the transform. This allows us to easily just move it over top of both of them. We could meta these and do the adjustment layer. Sorry, do the transform layer. But it's a bit, you generally don't want to I wouldn't do that because again, you don't want to edit the stuff inside here, and you might need to edit it in the end because you don't have it lined up properly quite yet type thing. So having them separate is a good idea still. So from there, you just add the adjustment layer, then you apply the transform to the adjustment layer, like so. And again, just basic zoom, a jump basically. When you do a jump, so the first jump is the first transform here, then the second jump is right here. So before you do that jump, you want to apply a keyframe right before the frame before to make sure it's not doing a transition to the jump, because you would lose the jump otherwise. So we have keyframe, yep. So again, it's just basically here. So dot. Okay, so when lining stuff up, I'll just go for this now. For audio, we can zoom in here to the audio piece here. So based on our frame rate, which is 23.91, the original of the video here, moving frame by frame, you can kind of see we have a chunk of audio we can't line up to. So you could technically go into Audacity and offset the audio strip by a little bit, so it would, this part would be maybe over here type thing, but that's a bit of work. So you can only get it close enough based on your frame rate. So higher frame rate, you'll have more, able to access more of this audio strip in between here with a higher frame rate. But for the most part, you know, if you find a beat that you want, which would be this section here, just zoom in, apply a marker as close to it as you can, and then use that as a reference for lining up your image strips here. So it's good enough for this, but that is a limitation of Blender and your frame rates that you choose for your workspace type thing. But it's not a huge deal. I wouldn't really worry about it that much. But if it bothers you, you can set a higher frame rate to begin with and just modify your footage to compensate for that. So we're gonna jump in here, but generally you want to, you know, keep the original frame rate of the original footage. So it's kind of a trade-off here and there. So let's move on here, and again we're just doing jumps using scene changes here according to the audio. And I was going to skip ahead here, and for this part explosion here, this is just the original video with the audio of the explosion amplified to 2 here. And for this part here, we're just changing the original strip and adding a speed control to it to speed it up to kind of fit the music thing. So we continue with that fashion. The thing with speed control is these two strips are actually one strip that I just put a cut in between. And the reason I did that is because I only wanted the speed control over this section of the strip. And because I still want to play around with the spacing and the length of the strip, it's better not to have a speed control on something you want to change the length of later on, because it can cause issues. So separating these is a good idea in this case. So just doing a cut and then applying the speed control to just the section that you're adjusting here. So again, this would be 1.0 speed. And then this has this custom speed here with some keyframes to speed it up. And if I change anything in here, that would mess up the location of the keyframes and relative to the spots of the video, and that can cause issues. Alright, so we continue, and what I did here was just apply a bit of sound effect over top here, because the speed is increasing it. And speed control does not work on the audio. So the audio is playing at the original strip speed while the video is playing faster. So we have a scene here, and she kind of makes a thumping sound here, but that's actually going to be played way back here because the video is playing at a faster rate. So to grab that audio, we just go into the meta strip and find it, because this is playing at the original speed here. So it's about here we want. So we can just do a soft cut and another soft cut, and do Control C just to copy this here. And then when we're done with that, we're gonna undo any kind of stuff we do here, because that can cause issues if we leave it like that. So it's how it was originally. I just gotta hit Tab, get out of that. Then I just hit Control V to copy. Where is it? Control V. Where'd you go? Okay, they're way down here. So Control V, and I have my original audio, and I can just kind of play around with it and set it up to be something like this to what I want. So continuing on here, again, I actually kind of keep the audio from various strips that I originally had, but I decided not to use, just to add some busyness to the scene. And again, we're just repeating our adjustment layer, transform strips, and we have some more text strips here. Okay, we're just going to skip ahead here to this section here. So we have our original strip here. Then we go into something like this. So this is a very basic effect you can do. So all this is, and you kind of notice we are simply using a adjustment layer and then a transform to zoom out of our original strip here, which is this. And while we are doing that, we are gamma crossing into a new strip, this thing here. So again, I would just apply a, highlight the first one, the second one using Shift while it's held down, and just apply a gamma cross like so. So it's fading in to the other scene while the transform is zooming everything out. And while that's happening, we have these strips here. So these are basic color strips that are just being kind of cropped inward using keyframes. And by that, I will show you what I mean. So if you apply a color strip in its basic form, put it as an overdrop, and we'll just make it, some weird color. And we can go down here, image offset, crop. And using that same kind of cropping stuff, we can, have it kind of go like that. And we apply keyframes, so like that, and oops, like that. As you can see, it just kind of moves inwards like that. So the way you can do this, you can just apply a marker where you apply the keyframe on the first one, or just mute those, and just apply markers where you apply the keyframes. And we have something like this. Then from there I can just duplicate the properties here, and because this one is from the other side, I can just change the values from plus to negative here. So we have negative 1,847, and this one's positive 1,847. And then I will just repeat for the other two sides here. And as you can see, we end up with something like this. So with the color, I'm just applying a keyframe on the color to change it. So we'll look at this one. Apply a keyframe here, using I. And we can change the color to that at a later frame. And it changes color. Hooray! So that's all that is there. Very easy, basic. Nothing too fancy there. So moving on again. The only other thing to cover is these two bits here. So this first bit here, basically what this is we have this here. So I'll just play it. So this section here we're looking at here. So there's some stretching going on here. If we look at the original video file here, this is a meta strip here. And what I did here is, this is the original file here. As you can see, it's just her lifting her head up, basically. But if I take this, duplicate it, add a meta strip to it again, and apply reverse, it does like a back and forth, kind of like she's banging her head against the ground type thing. So that's all this is here. And I just duplicated this and continued, because I knew I would apply a speed control here. And because I have a speed control, it takes, instead of taking just this space, it's going to take more than that. So it doesn't actually show you how much it takes here, but it does take probably up to here based on my speed. So I just continue even outside the boundary here. And the reason we meta before we reverse here is because it's basically the same as applying a hard cut to each of the sides here, because this original video file actually has the other parts still in it, because it was just soft cuts to begin with, which is what I want, because I can easily access the parts next to it instead of doing a hard cut and having to go back to my original stuff all the way to the far right of my workspace here. So I can easily undo my meta strip at any time as well and adjust it to apply more content or less content. So that's my preferred way of reversing stuff, is just to meta it and then hit reverse. But because we had a meta strip to begin with, we just meta it again and then hit reverse. So we're metaing the meta strip, if that makes sense. So kind of, you know, wrap your head around that if you can. So hit tab, get out of that. And so we just applied a speed control to this here. So she's banging her head a lot. Then from there, we want to apply that crop stuff we did earlier to this to have a weird kind of camera thing going on. So I did a adjustment layer here, just because I may have wanted it over top of other strips. In the end, I didn't though, so I could have just applied it straight to the speed control or whatever in this case to get the effect. But because I have the adjustment layer, it simplifies things, because sometimes you want to apply it to the speed control, sometimes you want to apply it to this, but I know I want to apply it to both over top. So having an adjustment layer just kind of simplifies everything here. So I just added the transform layer, and what happened here? So this is kind of a error here. Well, okay. So the best way to do is to get the graph editor. So go to graph editor here and hit home. And as you can see, I just used, after we apply an initial keyframe, again, we can box select, you know, change the interpolation types, and just mess stuff around with the scale commands, S, X, S, Y, and just manually mess stuff up, basically, like we did in the second tutorial video. So, yeah, that's pretty much all to cover there. So what we did here, actually covered, okay, so I applied the crop settings to the adjustment layer directly. And I applied the zoom in, zoom out, and a bit of rotation to the transform layer here. So the crop settings are just like we see here. And then the transform layer settings are kind of this weird kind of up and in type thing. In the end, I took these out, so it's just the crop in the end, because that was too confusing to have that. So the crop by itself was sufficient. So the last bit I want to cover is this here. So what is this? Let's just play it. So basically you have like a camcorder type of effect going on here. It's kind of hard to see, but we have an overlay here. So I am going to, we're going to mute all this stuff here. Yeah, I'm just going to delete this because it's redundant. Okay, so this is the original scene, and if we apply a camcorder effect as an overlay, so this was something I grabbed from YouTube, and you can just record it using OBS and then insert it into here, and what you would do is just apply it as an ad over top of everything. I could do, yeah, so just an ad over top of everything. And then we have the camcorder, same, actually no, this is another little effect, as you can see here. So we have those going on, those two. Then we have the camcorder effect way down here. So that was what it was originally. Again, just grabbed it from YouTube. And we apply a transform to it to get it a bit more evened out. Zoom it in a little bit. as you can see here at the scale, we just stretched it a little bit. And we applied it as an add again, because it's actually black, as you can see there, so we need to use add to get it in there. But that does kind of affect the lighting a little bit, but it's okay in this case. So that's all that is here, these free things. I could mute that if I wanted to and just have the transform there. Okay, so what's this stuff here? Well, this is the camera, which is gonna jump up and down a little bit here, but we'll keep going in this fashion. So we added a static here, again as an overdrop. As you can see, the opacity was messed up with here. So again, just grab it from YouTube. So we have another static effect applied here. We have our text overlay applied here, again as an overdrop. And we have a final effect here. And this is just a TV turning off effect, but I moved it to subtract, as you see here. And I changed the opacity a little bit to be more gradual fade in and fade out using keyframes here. So you end up with this effect here. And then to complement that, I just added in a bit of a fuzz. You can kind of hear it there. And from there, we just apply some tricky camera stuff. So again, it's an adjustment layer, and then we apply our transform on top of that. So our camera stuff kind of starts here. You can use the graph editor if you want, and you just apply keyframes and whatnot, same as before, same concept. So you get this whole crazy effect based on that. And then this just continues, and same stuff as before. And just be careful when you add subtitles. Again, my original subtitles are here type thing. Then I replace them with the better ones here. So you want to make your subtitles soft, a soft color so they're easy on the eyes. And you want to make sure you have enough time to read them. So even though it's done about here, people can't really read that fast, so I extend it to about here. Even then it's pretty fast there. So actually there's a few more little sections on top of it. So there's this section here. So it might be kind of laggy to see that. But what we have here is a bit of masking and a fade into a different scene here. So let's go for this. So we have an image overlay, the bear here. So just an image and a transform and an overdrop here. Ta-da, pretty easy. Our text. And then what happens is we get to this point here. And this is our original video here. Alright, so that ends here. Then we have a picture here that we're going to fade into here. And to fade into the picture, we're going to use wipes here. 2 wipe effects to do that. But before we do that, we're actually going to apply a mask here. I'm going to mute these for a second. So all this is, I'll mute that too, and this. So we have our strip here. So basically this, where it left off, extended as a single. Oops. So basically this just as a still image. So what we would, basically what that is, if I just scrub this here, move it 1 frame over, make a hard cut here, extend it out, and let's make a hard cut here, and just extend it to wherever I need it to go type thing. So it's just a still image, that strip is, of a section that I want here. So from that section, I'm going to apply a mask, and basically I don't really need a mask here, but if I apply an adjustment layer over top of my video layer, and I make a mask around the character here, and I apply that mask to the adjustment layer, what's going to happen is, this is my mask here. So I made a mask in a UV image editor. It's around the character, pretty rough, but it's okay, and I just applied it here and did it on the adjustment layer, which I applied over top of the original strip, if that makes sense. So it's set to cross, so it's going to replace itself. And yeah, so from there, I applied a transform to the adjustment layer. So I'm going to shrink her down, basically, using keyframes. And so from there, we have basically this here. Then we have an image that comes in here. And again, that's an alpha under. So this is set to alpha over, and this, well, it happens to work out. So this is underneath all this stuff here. So she's over top like so. Okay, so the next thing is we want to fade into this image here. So we use a wipe, and again, we need the original part fading into the picture here. So we would go from here to here, add a wipe, like so. And we don't really want this effect, so we're going to do it alpha under in this case. And we'll apply it as a... The thing of this is we only have 32 channels, and the stuff that gets kind of caught at the top kind of stays there. Sorry, so stuff can kind of get caught at the top there. So we're just kind of cleaning stuff up here. So from there, we can apply a clock type effect here, like so, and apply a blur to it. Ta-da! So the effect we want is one of these going that way and one of these going this way. So we got one of them there. And we're going to put it as alpha under, so we get the masked version of our character in there showing up. So alpha under, like so. And then we're going to apply another wipe effect. This time we're going to apply it to the bear here, actually. And so apply it to the bear, that guy there, to the picture. Wipe. Move it down again. We're going to do alpha under. As you can see, you can have both of these kind of applying here. So do that the clock, do in instead, and apply a blur. So we get the effect we want there. The reason I can't redo it like I did the first wipe is because it doesn't allow me to do that. So I basically need a separate object. So I could just do another adjustment layer just from here to here and just have it docile as a jumping pad basically. But I had an image here I could use. So I use that. So if that kind of makes sense. You can mess around with that and see for yourself, but you generally need a new starting point if you're going to apply the wipes in tandem with each other. Sorry, I'm losing my voice here. So we continue. We just have a little section at the end. Just use the basic, subtitles for that. So and so and so and so. And this little section at the end for the YouTube caption things, the other videos. At the very end, we just use a gamma cross into the Resident Evil 4 You Are Dead thing I grabbed from YouTube again. And in this case, I applied a speed control onto it because it was, pretty long going to there, so it kind of gradually speeds itself up. So I kind of broke my previous rule here, and just because I don't really need to adjust it that much, I don't care about getting it exact in this case. So up to here, it's just 1.0, and then it increases speed gradually via a Bezier curve to about here, and it just ends about there. So it looks okay, so it works this way. So again, to get the gamma cross here, it was usually like this. I do gamma cross, and I get this. If I refresh, that is. Okay, so that's pretty much the entire project. So you can do your own kind of project, whatever you want to do, and try and do it in one sitting. So it can be anywhere from 2 to 5, 6 hours. So aim to like spend an afternoon or a morning or an evening just, working on something like this. So try and do it in one sitting. So you start at a certain time, you end at a certain time, or you start and you keep going until it's done pretty much in your mind. So it's done and over with, fairly within a timeline type thing, within a single sitting. Because if you do it in multiple sittings, you're going to kind of procrastinate and it's going to drag on. And the main point is just to the main purpose is just to apply the stuff that you learned, right, on your own time, and learn it based on doing it on your own. I'm going to stop talking because I'm not making much sense at this point. So if that was helpful, let me know. Otherwise, I probably won't do this again, examples anyways. But yeah, very easy. You can do it yourself, do your own project, post it to YouTube. Okay, so hopefully that was useful to some extent. Again, tutorial 3 will be out shortly-ish, and I'll teach you how to do hotkeys and stuff like that, so you don't have to go to this crazy stuff and find what you're looking for and click it all the time and then find, okay, it moved up there, I gotta click here again, and all that stuff. And we'll look at the 3D view as well. So this stuff here, and how to add 3D subtitles to your 2D video and all that crazy stuff, and how to zoom into a picture and that is larger than your workspace and all that crazy stuff, and a few things about masking, and I'll stop talking now. Thanks again for watching. If this was useful and you want to give back, consider checking out the other videos on my channel. Just give them some views. So I actually have a playlist. You can just play that in the background. You don't even need to watch this stuff. Just play in the background. And that would help me out if you want to give back. Otherwise, don't worry about it, and I'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye.